Good morning, and welcome to our Bright Talk about how to cut downtime 50% with this Fortune 500 strategy. Today, joining me is Rene Neumann, who is a solutions engineer for ZPE Systems. Rene has 22 years of IT experience helping some of the largest companies in the world architect highly available solutions. Welcome, Rene.
Good morning, Jim.
Great. And I'm Jim Wilson. I'm VP of Sales and Customer Success for ZPE Systems. So today we're going to talk about a couple different things. Why worry about downtime at the edge? Where does downtime come from? How to boost continuity like a Fortune 500. Some other customer success stories and how to build resilience with no grid. So the first question is, why worry about downtime at the edge, Rene?
So, Jim, I would say let's start first by looking briefly at what do we mean by the edge. For us, the edge is everything where you have active components. So think of sites where you have MDF, IDFs, anything where you have a small stack or large stack of active components. So it might be anything from an offshore power source to manufacturing to retail to a distributed data center. Literally everything which has some form of active component in it. And these sites are growing over the last couple of years, and they're going to continue to grow. We're getting more and more of these different sites. So as you can already see, the edge is quite a large different set of locations, and all of these locations, if they're going down, they're going to have an impact in some shape or form onto your customer experience, onto your customers, and because of that, of your business. So typically, if any of these sites go down, you have some form of a loss of revenue. Probably the most obvious one is for all of us is if you go into the store and you can't pay because the point of sale system is down. Yeah, it's a very, very inconvenient situation, let's put it that way, and hopefully we don't really experience it too often. But we are talking about these kinds of outages, these kinds of downtime, and that is the reason why downtime is quite important to the edge.
Okay, so downtime is usually made up of a couple different types of costs. Can you walk us through those?
Yeah, of course I can. So from our perspective, when we look at different customers, everybody talks about these 99% or these 9.9 reliability sites. So if you just look at 99% reliability for a remote site, that means that that site can go offline unplanned for around about 15 minutes every single day. So that is quite a lot of time if you add it up over all the different sites which you have and then over the whole year. So hard costs then for all of these remote locations would be everything which can be directly attributed to that outage. So that would be typically your travel costs, your expenses, the wages you have to pay, or any hardware or equipment which you have to exchange or you have to bring to the site to troubleshoot. Soft costs would be everything which can't be directly attributed to that individual outage, but which has overall still an impact, where the outage has overall still an impact. So that would be your typical loss of revenue, your damage to a brand because your customers can't pay, so they might go somewhere else instead, and so on and so forth. So that is a mix of the different costs which you're looking for. We found with our customers that roughly a minute of downtime for a site can cost you up to $5,600 per minute. So it's quite a substantial amount of money you might lose.
But we're not talking about every site going down for 15 minutes a day, correct?
No, correct. So that is it's an average. You will find that some sites go off more often than others. You will find that some stores or some locations might only go down for a minute or two, and others go off for half a day or for a full day, depending of how easy it is to fix the site, how fast it is. You can go out to the site to resolve the issue. So there are many, many different factors in there, and quite obviously, it is an average.
Okay, great. So let's talk about where downtime comes from.
So the downtime in any locations, but specifically in the remote locations, in your edge locations, is really a natural growth. There's nothing really new there. It is something which we have seen over the last 10, 15, 20 years even. Those remote sites originally were deployed as strategic points. They grew from there. And then over the time, what you had is that for specific features, you deployed more hardware, typically. So that might be a firewall, that might be a router, might be a digital signage system. Depending on what your requirement was for each site, you typically deployed another box. So that means that in those remote locations, the complexity grew because more hardware appliances means you need more space, more power, you have more cabling, more option that something can go wrong. The second biggest chunk of that one is then support times. If you don't have remote access to those sites, then that means that you have to send a truck out to troubleshoot, to fix issues, to even find them. So that might be that your own team is forced to go out to those sites, or you might have a support contract with somebody in the region which can go out there and troubleshoot issues. And that might be anything from simply rebooting the router because it hung, to replacing the firewall or any other of the equipment which might be there. And then the last big one for outages is human error. And that can be anything from an internal human error where somebody by mistake pushed a change which wasn't properly vetted up front, to anything external where you have very little to no control over, like somebody digging up a fiber line which provides the internet to your site, or a storm coming through and knocking out the power, or again the internet connection, or any other services which you might have in that region.
Okay, so what are the options that we have?
So in terms of options, you can essentially try to resolve the issue with the current processes, manpower you already have, meaning you keep the current stack, you try to maintain it, you optimize your processes, you try to handle the situation the best you can. You might try to adapt some of new automation mechanisms and so on and so forth. But that only will get you so far, right? That is the reason why specifically the Fortune 500 companies are changing that ball game completely in those remote stores. They're looking at new ways of doing and deploying, managing those sites. So, and their ultimate goal is to reduce the mean time to repair, to reduce the outage times which they experience in each store.
Okay, so let's dig down into this and about how we boost the continuity. Can you walk us through a couple customer success?
Yeah, so we have helped already over the last couple of years multiple customers on that transition from the traditional management method and orchestration layer of the remote sites over to a newer or to the newer processes and means, and with varying successes, varying business goals. You can see that some customers were more focused on improving the mean time to repair over high availability, to reducing the deployment costs and deployment times in each location. So as you can see, we have customers on all the different verticals, and we help them across multiple different business drivers and business goals.
Okay, well, let's take a few minutes and let's drill down on a specific edge solution.
Perfect, I would love to. So what we have prepared for you today is we have worked with a convenience store. They are mostly located in the US. I believe they have a couple of stores internationally as well, but the majority of their locations are across the United States. So in their convenience store, they had multiple systems, ranging from point of sales to digital signage over guest Wi-Fi network to their security systems like cameras, access systems. And they had a couple of local servers as well, which provided additional services like inventory and a couple of other internal systems, which they required for the store. Now, what the customer experienced was that they had quite a significant time of outage on average over all the different sites. And one of the biggest drivers for them was response time, which it took them essentially quite a long time to fix errors and finding them when they arrived. So they averaged on a day around about $84,000, which they lost in revenue every single day due to outages across all of the different stores. Now, again, it doesn't mean that all the stores went down every single day, but individual stores across the entire chain went down on a regular basis, and that caused that loss of revenue on an average basis.
So $84,000 a day is a big number. So
it's significant, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so how did you approach this?
So the customer was looking primarily at three main business drivers to reduce their downtime and to improve their uptime. Ultimately, everything comes back as making more revenue, right? So one of the things they were looking at was cutting the complexity in each store. Okay, so they were trying to reduce the physical amount of hardware they had in each store. They were looking at ways of utilizing software-defined solutions in their store to provide services, to provide their networking, the connectivity to their stores, to the customers. So that was one side. And the second side was then directly linked to that was responding faster. So that was, they were looking at ways of how can they gain visibility into the remote side, ideally troubleshoot each issue before even sending somebody out. And then in the last section was preventing outages altogether. Okay, depending on the different stores, they were looking at failover connectivity, so high availability connectivity options, to in some cases maybe even high availability for some of the stores.
Okay, so let's drill down on how you addressed each of these requirements.
Yeah, so in relation to the complexity, what we did is, so number one, again, think of that they had multiple systems in each store. So really most of their stores came from the legacy or the traditional layout where one unit, one box did one job in those stores. So we went in and proposed our node grid service router, which is a modular system, quite flexible. And using the node grid service router, we were able to replace multiple hardware devices which they had in each location with a single unit. So for the node grid service router, for example, we were able to provide network switching capabilities on each side. We were able to provide routing capabilities. We were able to provide failover connectivity through LTE connectivity to the site, as well as out-of-band management orchestration capabilities in each site in a single box. The node grid service router then on top of that directly provides a hypervisor, which allowed them to deploy additional services which were required for the store. So that is when they took physical hardware appliances like the digital signage and moved them to virtual appliances, which then run on top of the node grid service router. So overall, for these sites, we were able to replace 4 devices with a single unit.
Okay.
Yeah. So that on that side, we actually overachieved their ultimate goal. They were looking at getting rid of at least 2 units roughly. So here for them, we were able to eliminate 4 devices for physical appliances with a single device. A side effect of reducing the hardware complexity was that we were able to reduce the time it took to stand up a store and to actually rip the old gear out and deploy the new one to a single day. And the way how we did it was that they had a local partner which went on site. They did the racking, the stacking, they did the physical labor. So they took the appliances out, recabled everything, relabeled everything. And then the Node-RED service router family talks to our ZP Cloud. And in the ZP Cloud, the customer had prepared automated deployment scripts and automation tasks, which then deployed the different services and configuration options for the store. That included the Node-RED appliance in itself, as well as any virtual appliance, as well as any connected appliance to the Node-RED. So a huge reduction in the deployment time from previously 3 days down to a single day, which greatly improved their availability for the stores.
Well, it sounds like it made it a lot easier to upgrade as well. So what about the deployment of trucks? How did you address that?
So we as ZPE Systems, we have a long history in the out-of-band space, so we know exactly what it means to provide access to remote systems, to provide low-level access to remote systems, like to console interfaces or to directly to hypervisor console interfaces. That is what we are doing for many, many years. And the Node-RED service router can directly provide that visibility as well as additional capabilities to allow you to troubleshoot and access your remote sites quite easily from anywhere in the world using the ZP Cloud. Essentially, what the units do is that when the main connectivity goes down for whatever reason, they have built-in capabilities of failing over to a secondary or tertiary connection. So that can be active-passive connections or can be active-active connections. It doesn't really matter. And that can include anything from your standard internet connectivity, which you get from your ISP, to LTE, to any other form of connectivity you might have in the store. So in that combination, we were able to directly provide them access to the remote stores in case of an outage. And that allowed them to troubleshoot the issue before sending somebody out. Ultimately, they were able to reduce the mean time to repair by over 90 minutes by literally just sending somebody out in case there was a physical issue which they couldn't fix remotely.
So you gave them control, even though there wasn't someone on site.
That is correct. That is correct. I mean, in most of these stores, the people who are working there are technically not the strongest. They're typically technically illiterate. They don't necessarily know how the different equipments work. So by providing them secure and reliable access to the remote sites, to the systems, specifically to the people who know how those systems work, was really a game changer to the company.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you talked about was someone cutting an internet line. How did you address that?
I mentioned that just a minute ago. So the Node-RED service router family provides a wide range of different connectivity options. They range from a standard Ethernet copper connection, which can go back to a router provided by your ISP, over fiber connectivity, which you can use to terminate multiple different connectivity options like fiber, MPLS, VDSL. We have 4G capabilities directly built in, optional, and in the summer we are going to have 5G as well. So we have a wide range of different connectivity options, and all of these can be used as a failover, as a backup connectivity to each site. So that means not only that they can be used for management access and to troubleshoot the sites, but they can provide access to the store as well in case the main internet goes down. The internet connectivity might be limited, the speed might be limited, the bandwidth might be limited to reduce set to what they normally would have, but the store in itself is up and running, your point of sale system is working, etc. pp. So there's a lot of connectivity options there which will address a lot of the issues where your standard internet connectivity gets interrupted.
Okay.
For some of the stores, what the customer was looking for was actually going a little bit further than just standard internet resilience. I would say they were looking for their key stores to actually provide a real high availability option as well. They were aiming there to reduce the downtime to these stores to essentially eliminate that downtime. And what they did is they deployed 2 Node Grid appliances on each store, providing high availability. So both Node Grids had internet connectivity to the main internet service provider, they had LTE failover capabilities, and they ran the services directly on top of it in a HA cluster. So that allowed the customer to safely upgrade, troubleshoot one of the units in case there was something wrong, in case they had to do a firmware upgrade, they had to redeploy a service, a system, or anything like it. The other system would take over for that period of time, and they would have high availability in those key stores.
Okay, so you addressed their main concerns. What were the overall results when you looked at this?
So going back to the 3 main points, we were able to achieve the business goals in all 3 of the main key areas that we're looking at. So we were able to consolidate the hardware appliances and reduce the complexity which they experience in each store. We provide them with central and remote infrastructure access, which allowed them to deploy and orchestrate the remote sites, as well as to troubleshoot in case something went wrong. And then lastly, we provided redundant connectivity and services for their stores, depending on the store size. Again, some just had network connectivity failover capabilities, others went for a whole HA setup and environment, depending on the importance of the store. So looking at it from a pure cost perspective, they did an analysis a couple of months later, and they found that the average downtime costs per day went down to $42,000. So
okay. You achieved your goal.
We achieved our goal, exactly. So they saved 50% in business revenue on a daily basis.
That's a pretty substantial number. So can you walk us through, building resilience with Node Grid? Can you walk us through how that is accomplished and some of the solutions?
Of course I can. I guess looking again at briefly what we just spoke about, it comes down to the 3 main key factors. Number 1, we can help consolidate and simplify the infrastructure which is in each branch location. Okay, we can reduce your hardware stack from existing 4 devices to potentially down to 1. Secondly, we can provide secure remote access to all of your remote sites, not only allowing you standard access, but allowing you as well to push configurations, to orchestrate changes, to orchestrate the deployment of sites and changes in those locations. And then last but not least, we can provide you with virtualization capabilities, which allow you to host services and redundant services in each location, in each branch location, directly on top of our hardware appliances, if you want to do so.
Okay. So is this a one-size-fits-all solution?
We have different hardware appliances, which are one part of the puzzle, I would say. So at the very bottom, you can see our Node Grid Service Router device, which is a model device, which allows you to put cards in as you need them. So different network connectivity options, different serial and out-of-band capabilities are directly available to you. So that is typically deployed in larger sites or for customers who require the flexibility. And then we go all the way up to our smallest device, which is a Link SR, which is typically used to provide redundant network connectivity in remote sites. So any of those devices in between will do the job, will provide all the functionality, everything which we just spoke about. It's all part and packaged into these devices. So that is one part of the puzzle. On the other side, you have the ZPE Cloud, which provides you the secure access, the orchestration layer to these devices. It's a SaaS-based service. You can just log in and access and manage your devices from that one central location.
Okay. Well, Rene, just to recap everything, doesn't matter the industry, we can help you cut downtime by at least 50% with NodeGrid. And if you'd like to learn more, you can reach out to us at zpesystems.com contact or info@zpesystems. So we do have a couple questions. So the first one, what if we don't have cellular connectivity at these remote locations?
So as I mentioned before, we have multiple connectivity options ranging from standard good old PSTN over VDSL, fiber, copper connections to LTE and 5G as well. Now, depending if you don't have 4G, 5G available to you, you can always use a combination of any of the others to provide connectivity. And if you really are in a bad situation and you want to use some form of a low orbit satellite internet service or anything like it, then we can help you there as well.
That's great. So the next question, we've standardized on Palo Alto firewall. How would that work with the NodeGrid solution?
Palo Alto is, or we are a certified partner of Palo Alto, actually. That means that you can safely and securely deploy the Palo Alto VM series on our hardware appliances, certified by Palo Alto. We have multiple customers who are doing it. We are providing an easy way of deploying the virtual machines on our hardware, setting it up. So we are more than happy to help you to deploy your Palo Alto in the branch offices. Besides Palo Alto, essentially what we're doing is we are a vendor-neutral solution overall. So we provide a KVM hypervisor, we provide a Docker hypervisor. So anything which runs on those, which would be your typical Linux operating systems, your typical Windows would run on that one. And most of your networking solutions, they are all running on either of these two, typically. So all of these are no issue at all. You can deploy any of those services directly on top of our hardware appliance.
Well, Rene, this has been very helpful. It sounds like ZPE Systems has a solution, whether you're a small to medium business to a Fortune 500. So I'd like to thank you for taking your time today, and thank you to everyone who joined us. And we will look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you very much.